Those myosin binding sites are covered over there. Okay, so now what happens is the calcium levels are the calcium spark has taken place. Okay, we have released calcium from the L tubules. So now we go to state number B. Calcium has released and it is now bound to the thin filaments, and now you have moved away the tropomyosin from the way. All right, so what happens is calcium binds to troponin C, and think of troponin C like the door hinge, and calcium is the key, and tropomyosin is the door. So calcium binds to the door hinge or the lock over there, and when you unlock it with calcium, finally the door moves, exposing the binding sites. I'm giving quite a few analogies over here, but it helps you understand what's going on. So you can even look at the troponin and the tropomyosin as a door handle and a door, and the treasure behind the door is the binding site for your myosin on the actin, on the G-actin molecules. Okay, so calcium levels rise, and finally what happens is once the tropomyosin moves out of the way, myosin and actin now fuse. So you can see actin is bound to myosin. There's a cross bridge that has formed over here, and the myosin is still holding on to that ADP.pi, that partially hydrolyzed ADP molecule, ADP.pi. It's not completely broken down the bond, but it is not completely, intact also. So this is your cross bridge formation. The myosin binds to the actin, and this causes an increase in calcium levels. Now you have the next thing that takes place, power stroke. So now that the myosin has bound to the actin, it finally completely breaks down the ATP molecule. So it binds to the actin, and then after that, when it's bound to the actin, it says, now I have my anchor point, so now I can completely break down this ADP molecule over there. So it does that. This is called power stroke. The head angle you can see is 90 degrees over here. It is going to convert, if you see in this position, follow the arrow, to 45 degrees angle over here. So this pulls the thin filaments a little closer, and the Z lines closer by 15 nanometers in each of this power stroke that takes place. This is called power stroke. It's bending its head, after it binds over there. So this is your power stroke, and the myosin pulls the actin towards the M line, and it breaks this bond completely. This ADP.pi bond, it breaks, and then it releases the phosphate, inorganic phosphate. So this is called product release. It releases the phosphate. However, now after you've done the power stroke, the myosin has done the power stroke, it's still holding on to actin, and it's still holding on to ADP. It's not left it. All right? Now, the only way myosin will let go of an ADP molecule and actin is if a new ATP molecule binds to it. So what happens is you have this myosin molecule is bound to ADP, stubbornly holding on to it, and it's also bound to actin. Myosin's really clingy. It's a clingy playboy. You can look at it that way and think of an analogy yourself. I have one in class which I say, but I don't want to say it on the internet. I don't want to get cancelled. But the point is, you have this ADP molecule, and it's myosin's holding on to it, and only when a new ATP molecule will bind, like you could see, follow the arrow, a new ATP molecule comes along. Hello, look at me, I'm a new ATP molecule. That's when the ATP will bind over here. In the next picture, you could see over here in picture number D over here, the ATP has bound and the ATP has been released, and now myosin will release the actin, and it has bound to this ATP molecule over here. So it releases the cross bridge because of the new ATP that has bound, and the ADP is released. And then after this myosin will undergo partial hydrolysis of the ATP molecule to the initial state, and then we go back from 45 degrees to 90 degrees finally. So that brings the partial hydrolysis makes the myosin head go back to the cocked state, and this is cross bridge cycling. So it's a little complicated. Watch this again and again. Watch this video again and again, and you'll get this. Now, the important thing to know is this state, after the cross bridge, after the power stroke has taken place, and you release the inorganic phosphate, and you are still the myosin is still binding to ADP. This state is what you see in rigor mortis. What is rigor mortis? It's contraction of death. Mortis means death, and there's this stiffness of death. So after a body dies, after somebody dies, you have a body that becomes hard after a few hours, like up to 4 to 6 hours. And why does this happen? Why do the muscles get stiff after death? So that's because what happens is, remember, you need ATP to relax muscles, for the circa ATPase pump to work. So when you have no ATP production because of death, what's going to happen? So when you have this ATP production stopped because you don't have any more energy, you stop breathing, there's no oxygen, there's no electron transport chain, there's no ATP production, calcium is going to be released from the L tubules. So now all the the myosin binding sites are exposed on the actin. So this release of calcium is going to unmask the bindings. So what happens is the myosin binds to the actin in that state, and it uses up all the ATP. There's no fresh ATP for the myosin to also release itself from the actin to break the cross bridge which has formed over there. So you get this state where your muscle is stiff, and it's because the myosin is bound to the actin, because there's no new ATP and all that calcium has been released from the L tubules. So no ATP for cross bridge to continue and also to relax, and you're in this state which is labeled as number C over here, okay, as C. So this is the stiffness of death. This is another important clinical aspect over here. And if you want to relax a muscle, if you're not dead from rigor mortis, you stop the action potentials coming down the alpha motor neuron. And what happens is the calcium is eventually pumped back into the sarcoplasmic reticulum, meaning the L tubules, via the circa ATPase pump. And this reduces the level of calcium ions in the cytoplasm, causing the muscle to relax. So this is your excitation-contraction coupling. Very interesting, very important topic, quite complicated. And this cycle which I've drawn is extremely beautiful, and you're not going to find this in most books. It's a compilation of all the different informations I got from the years of teaching that I've been doing and understanding and loving physiology, especially this. Right? It's not in all the books. It's a merging of different books put together. So I hope you commit this to heart, because the power stroke and the cross bridge cycling, especially, this is a beautiful diagram over here, and the cycle which I've drawn, it's a work of art. If you can hang a Picasso or a Mona Lisa, this is my little Picasso over here. Okay, so hope you enjoyed this, and we'll continue with some other interesting topics after this.